Think back to school. You brought home your report card, heart pounding. If it showed A's, you were celebrating. Parents smiled, teachers praised you. Maybe there was even a reward, a night out to your favorite restaurant as a result. You felt worthy. You felt loved. You felt validated, seen like you belonged. But if there was a B, or worse, a C, that warmth instantly turned cold. Disappointment filled the room. The lesson you absorbed? Love, approval. It only comes when I deliver results. No one said it outright, but the message was clear. Your grades equal your worth. And you fast forward to today. You're chasing so many different results in your life, new relationships, more money, more deals, expansion. Because somewhere deep down, it feels like proof that you are enough. And when results slow on the golf course, in your business, it's not just business or golf-related pain you experience. It's that childhood wound of not being celebrated, being ripped open once again. And that is why detaching from your results feels so threatening. Because for decades, results have been your ticket to belonging. But maybe for you, it wasn't the grades. It was sports. When you made the game-winning basket, you hit a home run, or you crossed the finish line first, the crowd cheered. Teammates, coaches hugged you, celebrated you. Parents adored and respected you even more. Coaches smiled. Your friends' parents smiled at you. Teammates lifted you up. And in that moment, you weren't just a kid. You were significant, seen, the savior, enough, validated. But when you lost, when you underperformed, silence, maybe even criticism, disappointment hung heavy in the air. So you wired yourself to believe, I only matter when I win. Winning equaled love, belonging, safety. Losing, well, that equaled rejection. And now, on the golf course or as an entrepreneur in your business, every deal or every round, every quarter or every tournament, every scoreboard moment is subconsciously tied to that childhood program. And if you win, you're validated. But if you lose, it feels like the same lonely silence from decades ago. That is why detachment is so hard. So I ask you this question. What if your attachment to outcomes isn't driving success, but silently sabotaging your growth, your health, your golf game, and your relationships? And how's that for an introduction? What is up, fellow golfer? Welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfers Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter, the golf hypnotherapist. I'm a mindset and performance coach, and I use hypnosis to help the best high-performing clients out there get unstuck out of their own way and unlock their potential. I'm thrilled you're tuning in to another episode. This is the place where we have the raw, honest, deep, vulnerable conversations about what it means to truly cultivate a winning mindset. We skip over the surface level fluff. Yes, some of those surface level tools are absolutely valuable and they should be learned, strengthened, and practiced often. But if you're truly committed to achieving your potential on the course, in your professional life or in your personal life, then you need to go deep. You need to honestly look inward and understand the origin of your toxic patterns of thinking, feeling, believing, and behaving so you can begin to dismantle them, harvest that energy, and use it to build the thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors you need to become the best version of yourself. And that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. If you're truly committed to achieving your goals, asking for help is what accelerates results. Mindset performance coaching is a must to become one of the top performers on the course or in your industry. And if that's the asset you need to go where you want to go, well, hey, I invite you to use the link in the show notes to schedule a mindset coaching discovery call with me so that you can learn exactly how mindset and performance coaching can take you, your results, your life to the next level. Exciting episode here today. Really, really thrilled to dig into this conversation. Want to share with you briefly what's coming down the pipeline because the guest list is just fucking dope, if I do say so myself. So this Thursday, we have the Par Train stopping by. Mr. Evan Singer joins us for a conversation that's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. You might think we're going all things golf, but somehow we talk nothing about golf. In full circle, it comes back to have everything to do with golf. You're definitely not gonna want to miss that one. Next week, October 2nd, we've got Dr. Izzy Justice talking about neurohacks to spike down stress and why you should really prioritize chasing 10 hertz. The following week, you'll have my Q3 recap. Holy shit, Q3 is almost over on my golf journey, driving that handicap down to 5 by the end of the year. That episode will be paired with a returning guest, the face of golf on CBS and ESPN, Mr. Mark Immelman, discussing resilience and why your routine is your armor. We've got Mr. John Weir of the Mental Golf Type coming on. You've got my mentor, the number one mindset and performance coach in the poker space and coach to many 7, 8, and 9-figure earners, Elliot Rowe, coming on. I am licking my chops for that one. I can't wait to go deep with him and many other phenomenal guests. But today, we're here to talk about you and your attachment to results. And what I hope you gleaned from the story about bringing home the report card, from the story about your wins and losses, your successes and failures in your preferred sport during your childhood years, is that something was learned. And that something I'm referring to is that your results define, dictate your self-worth. So whenever you have a great result, you shoot a great round in the course, you place well in the tournament, you earn X amount of money this week, you close that number of deals this past quarter, you feel incredibly high, so proud, validated, seen, and good about yourself. But during a tough lull on the golf course, maybe a bad tournament, a bad month, during a slow quarter, or multiple rejections on sales calls, one after the next, it begins to eat away at you. It's exhausting, it's draining, invites in doubt, disappointment, anger, shame, regret, uncertainty, fear. And that's not a place to operate from. The problem that so many of us face is twofold in this instance. Number one, your attachment to your results is a collection of learned feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors, specifically a belief. The belief I've already identified is that your results equal your worth. And I want you to pause as I say that. Your results equal your worth. And just allow your mind to drift to the roller coaster ride you feel when you've had great results and when you've had not so great results. How is that helping you? How is that hurting you? And this is especially true if you cannot leave or compartmentalize your results from the golf course or the workplace when you go back home to spend time with your significant other and your children. Then it becomes even more pronounced, more destructive. So we'll come back to that. The second point I want to get into as to why this exists, your results equal your self-worth, this learned pattern, is a mismanagement of expectation. And what I mean by that is there is an incongruency between expectation and reality. And anytime there's an incongruency in expectation and reality, that creates a gap. And that gap creates space for emotions such as doubt, fear, worry, timidness, apprehension, anxiety, shame, guilt, regret to creep in and dominate, to take over and hijack the steering wheel of your life. And truthfully, it's not your fault. Because growing up in many fields, many domains of life, society has conditioned us that there is a timely and equal relationship between input and output. Give you a quick example. You work an hour, you bill for an hour, you get paid for that hour. Input and output are basically one-to-one and predictable. You get paid every week, every 2 weeks, every month. Another example, you follow a recipe. You apply heat to the protein. Within minutes, you see raw ingredients transformed into a finished dish. Input equals output. There's an immediate and visible change. In golf, you can follow the recipe perfectly. But so many variables beyond your control can delay that meal, so to speak, that new lifetime low from actually coming to fruition. The same in business. You can do everything right. All of your cold outreach, your prospecting, your sales calls, your networking and relationship building. The analogy I often come back to in my own business is I cast as many lines in the water as possible. Sometimes I have no fucking clue when I'm going to get a bite. And I imagine you share a similar experience there. So there's an incongruency in expectation and reality. And this is further fueled by that propensity to overly or hyper focus on results that takes you away from the process. The one thing that you do have the most control over. And when you begin to get sloppy or half-ass your process because you're so hyper-focused on results, well, that takes you even further away from the results you seek because now you've got a half-assed, inconsistent, or low-quality process that you're falling back on in an effort to get these results. And that creates a problem, to say the least. And what many of you don't realize is just how much of a problem this over or hyper fixation on results is. I mean, off the top of your head, it's pretty obvious. It probably drives you fucking crazy. It's the little voice in your mind that keeps you up between 2 and 4 at night, overly fixated on what to do, running numbers again in your business, replaying sales conversations, team meetings, replaying holes, tournament decisions. Your hyperfixation on results is burning you out. Mentally, emotionally, physically. It creates chronic stress. It creates tunnel vision, emotional burnout. It sabotages your relationships. It makes it increasingly difficult to be present. It's coming home after a long day of work, still glued to your phone. You're, and I'm using air quotes, you can't see me, present at the dinner table, but your wife can't get an honest answer out of you in conversation. She gets these short, tense, irritable exchanges. You don't ask your kids about their day. You're on your phone, you're checking email, you're stepping away from the table to take calls because you're focused on the wrong thing, the results. Because you have developed a belief and a pattern. Not only do my results equal my self-worth, but I've got to do more to finally get the results. Then I can feel better. And the cost of these destructive patterns are erosion of your relationships with your significant other, with your children, with your team members, your employees. An erosion of your health and energy. There's no time for self-care when there's results to be found, results to be earned, results to be achieved. You start skipping your workouts. You're not sleeping much, and you're so burnt out that you're suddenly relying on a couple glasses of wine or a bourbon every night before you go to bed. And sure, it helps, increase the onset to sleep and numb your pain and your stress, but it leads to shit sleep. So then you wake up feeling more irritable, more depleted, more exhausted, and on the cycle goes. And you have less energy to actually rebuild or fine-tune the processes you need to get the results you desire, so you get fewer results. Results feel further away. And it's this vicious fucking cycle. And as that cycle continues to go on, you just lose enjoyment for why you started doing what you were doing in the first place. whether that's losing joy in the game or losing joy in the business, the project, the team that you first started with, and which was really a strong component to why you picked up the golf club or you built the business and built the team that you have today. So it begs the question, what story are you telling yourself about when you do achieve results and when you don't? If you believe that you are only as worthy as your last outcome, every round of golf, every deal, every conversation at the office becomes not only a reflection, but perhaps the verdict on your identity. And how you feel about yourself bleeds into every area and every relationship in your life. And if you continue down this path of giving an external circumstance, outcome, something of which you do not have full control over, the power to dictate how you feel about yourself, you will remain stuck. Not only well short of and below your potential, but stuck in a pattern of mental, physical, emotional burnout, slowly but surely eroding away the relationships with those you are closest with and those you need most in your life. And it's all because your self-worth is tied to your results. So what do we do? I have an imagination this is resonating, this is hitting. Because you can quickly identify with the pain points and frustrations I've shared. The late nights, the stressful middle of the night conversation you have with yourself, the worry, the fear, the anxiety, the lack of self-care, even the lack of time practicing the game you love so much and say you're so committed to. You know all the tense conversations, the things you regret saying, the things you should have said, the things you shouldn't have said to your significant other, to your children. Because you're so hyper-focused on results. You have an opportunity to do some deep reflection here. To begin uncovering the origin of when, why, and how you learned this. And I encourage you, through a silence practice, journaling, meditation, breath work, silence, nothingness, to get curious. And through that lens of non-judgmental curiosity I speak about so often, start uncovering. When could this pattern have formed? Is there any association with your youth sports, with the grades you brought home? Another common one I see in my clients is when my clients have multiple siblings, it's just like a fight to the death for attention from their parents. So when they do finally have a good result and they get that attention, well, then it becomes like fucking crack. And they're doing everything and anything they can to get bigger results, better results. And they put everything else on the back burner, including their own self-care and their own family, to get bigger and better results. And this pattern continues to plague them well into their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, 50s, 60s, and maybe onward. So you've got to get curious and just start uncovering. And just start poking holes in this belief. Is this true? Did I really lose all love? Was I really never accepted? Did I never belong if I made a mistake, if I underperformed or didn't hit the winning shot, hit the home run, get the straight A's, get into that college? Was love literally taken away from you? I can't answer that. You can. But I encourage you to get creative. And at the end of this episode, this conversation, I've got a few more prompts to really throw your way to help fuel this reflective process. But you have to start looking inward and looking into the past. You absolutely have to do that. The second upgrade opportunity here is to reset and reshift your focus to prioritizing your process. This is incredibly simple in the game of golf. You literally have a pre-shot process. often described as a pre-shot routine. Instead, you have a pre-round process, I hope, how you warm up mentally and physically, maybe a pre-round course management process. You look at the course you're plotting ahead of time. And then you have an after round process. You have a practice routine or process. You work with a swing coach, a mindset and performance coach. You have a collection of processes. The real win here is relentless fucking execution of your process. That is the win, and literally gives you the best opportunity to get the results you desire. Period. There's a really good book. It's called The Confident Mind by Dr. Nate. Just looking to make sure I pronounce his name correctly. It's on my bookshelf. Dr. Nate Zinsser, The Confident Mind. He was I'm going to butcher it, but he was basically the lead sports psychologist at West Point Military Academy. I don't know what his exact label and credentials are. I mean, he is a doctor. But he was the one working on helping these cadets strengthen their mindset. And he wrote a phenomenal book about confidence. And the concept he uses, and I've written about this before in one of the past editions of the More Pars Than Bogeys newsletter, is what he calls the first victory. The first victory is the only victory you can achieve before you get that big last victory, which is the actual result you desire. To get the last victory, you need the first victory. And that first victory starts with execution of the first step, the first action step of the process or routine most likely to bring you that outcome. So you've got to go back to your process. You've got to go back to your routine. Because the elite edge, the separator from your competition, the past version of you who you're trying to outdo and be better than, the elite edge isn't setting bigger expectations. It's managing them and then mastering detachment, anchoring to a process. And then most importantly, too, that I've yet to cover, that it's really timely to be discussed now, is you have to understand the universal law of lagging results. And I can bring back the fishing analogy I alluded to earlier. I mean, it's a wonderful fishing experience. I'm sure my buddy Luke Barton, big shout out Luke. Luke was on episode 6 of the show, dear friend and client of mine. He's a big fisherman. But what I'm getting at is you can't just cast your line and expect a fish to bite just like that. Perfect world? Sure, maybe. But typically you're waiting. And waiting. And still waiting. And maybe you get a bite, maybe you don't. But the more lines you cast in the water, the more likely it is you're going to get a bite. Going to get a big bite. You're going to reel in a monster. But my point being, there's not an equal relationship between input and output like we hoped and like we've been conditioned for in many areas of our life. There is a lag effect. The results you are experiencing now are typically the byproduct of what you've been doing the last 3 to 6 months. I want you to hear that again. The results you are experiencing now are typically the byproduct of what you've been doing the past 3 to 6 months. So if you're unhappy with where you are, you need to have an honest conversation with yourself about what you have and have not been doing the past 3 to 6 months to achieve the results you desire. Because the truth is, the results you seek reside in the work you're unwilling to do, the work you're avoiding. That's where the magic is. That's where the catalyst for growth and results is. It's in the work you're avoiding. And I know it's not sexy, but you've got to double down on your process. Learn to fall in love with. Learn to gamify your process. That's the real result that matters. How well did I execute my process? Did I make all my cold outreaches? Did I have all my sales calls? Did I refine and execute my sales call processes? Did I go to the networking or relationship building events? Did I have date night and high quality open communication with my significant other? Did I have daily quality time with my son or daughter? Did I execute my 3 practice sessions a week? Did I execute my pre-shot routine 100% of the time? That's where the focus is. You double down and redirect your energy to the process, you're better able to manage expectation, and the results that you ultimately seek, the achievements, the trophies, the wins, the accolades, The opportunity to achieve those is exponentially greater when you focus on your process. You anchor in, you detach from that ultimate one, and you give yourself the best chance to achieve it by showing up day in and day out. And guess what? When you focus on the process, that is more or less all within your control. And if you continue to show yourself week after week, building up this bank account of confidence, of evidence, of consistency, and you tie your self-worth to that, you start feeling like $1,000,000. Confidence exponentially rises faster than ever, and you go faster toward achieving the results that you desire. So I want to leave you with this. A couple tangible action steps, couple prompts, questions to ponder, if you will. Where in your life today are you still chasing the same validation you sought as a child? When you feel the need to rush or force a decision, is this true urgency or fear described as urgency? If tomorrow's deal or tomorrow's round falls apart, what story do you tell yourself about what that means about you? What's one area of your business or of your golf game where you can score yourself on execution quality rather than outcome or results? And finally, if results always lag behind execution, what's one process you're committed to trusting, even if the payoff hasn't shown up yet? Your self-worth should not be directly influenced from your results. And when you can learn to detach that, to dismantle that belief, that pattern of thinking, believing, and doing, you tap in to an unbelievable opportunity of growth. Because you get to shatter the perspective that's been dominating your thinking, feeling, and doing for so long. You get to detach from these expectations, better focus on processes, better build confidence, and actually ultimately, in the end, achieve better results. If you want to achieve better, you need to be better. And if you want to be better, you need to do better. And if you want to do better, hey, it starts by sharing this episode. Sharing this episode with a friend, a golfer or a non-golfer, someone you know who's burnt out emotionally, physically, mentally, running themselves in the ground in the name of results that only elude them, burning relationships. Share this episode. I know you know somebody who needs to hear this message. I know you likely need to listen to it again, so set aside the time to do that. Take notes, share this episode. Message me on Instagram at The Golf Hypnotherapist. What stands out? What's your biggest takeaway? What follow-up questions do you have? I'd love to hear from you. And I thank you so much for listening to yet again another Monday episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. Again, remember the remainder of the year, we're coming out twice a week. Every Monday, solo episode like this. Every Thursday, one of the brilliant minds that I have the pleasure and opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with. If you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to open up your phone, go to the home screen of your podcast app, choose the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast, leave a rating, leave a review. It supports the show more than you know. It gets this show, it gets my messaging out in front of more people, and it gives me the street cred, if you will, to bring on bigger and better guests. So leave that review, leave that rating. Have a phenomenal start to your week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.